This weekend, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning dropped in theaters. The franchise has been going on now for 29 years.
Might this become a franchise?
You know, I don't know with this. It would all depend on the material. You know, I'm sure Paramount wants to go on. So.
Absolutely.
That means it's time to stop and rank all 8 Mission Impossible movies from the that didn't fully work to a whole bunch of the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the Mission Impossible films. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. One quick announcement, I will be at Fan Expo Dallas this weekend on Friday and Saturday, May 30th and May 31st. I've got 2 different panels on May 30th. That's Friday night. One of them is on How to Grow a Nerdy YouTube channel, and another will be a hot takes video. I would love it if you could come out to be there. Love to meet people. If you see me walking around, be sure to walk up, say hello. I love to meet people at Comic Cons, and let's get started. In last, Mission Impossible 2. But I will say this, if Mission Impossible 2 is the worst movie in your franchise, and you've got 8 movies, you're doing pretty well. I think there are a lot of problems with this film. There's also a lot of things in this movie that are really cool and a lot of fun to watch on screen. Now, in the early days of this franchise, for the first half of this franchise, one of the fun things about it is that with each movie, they would bring in a new director and they would intentionally give each film a unique flavor to it.
And one of the nicest things about Mission Impossible versus some of the other franchises is that they celebrated the difference between directors.
Yeah, that was the point.
The Brian De Palma one is very different from the John Woo one, which is very different from the J.J. Abrams one, which is very different from mine.
So Mission Impossible 1 was this Brian De Palma thriller. You're talking about styles that are very distinct but very different. Going from Brian De Palma to John Woo, action movie. Little bit of a stylistic difference there. And so you feel that right out of the gate that we are in for something very different than we got in the last movie. And if the last one avoided guns, they brought in the guy known for his gun fu and awesome gunplay. And for better or for worse, at least it stands out and is unique for its woo-isms. The movie feels kind of like 3 movies in one. One of them, it kicks off and it has a very James Bond womanizer spy thriller vibe to it in a way that none of the rest of this franchise has. It feels like it's a Mission Impossible movie with a lot of the classic Mission Impossible-isms. And the third one, it's very much a John Woo movie, especially as you move into the third act. And there's motorcycle chases, slow-mo, doves flying, and a bunch of gunplay that is really cool. And the problem with the movie is that these different pieces don't fit together quite right. So the first major action set piece in the film isn't until like over an hour in the film. So we do all of our womanizing, romance, sleep with the babes in the first half of the movie, and then it's 45 minutes straight of gunfights and car chases. And so it's very odd pacing for how the movie plays out. The screenwriter on the film kind of addressed this a little bit, where he said that it was a very weird assignment because he came in and they went, all right, here's your set pieces. You have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have this. Now write the story to piece together our cool set pieces. Not really the best way to put a movie together, generally speaking, in most normal environments for a writer to come up with their best material. And then likewise, there's all sorts of rumors, discussion about how maybe the original cut was 3 hours long and Tom Cruise locked John Woo out of the editing room. And what was this original version and what did it look like? How was it paced? I don't know. But the movie that we got has some awesome action in it. When the action kicks in, it's classic John Woo, except with a huge budget and Tom Cruise wearing shades going crazy doing action. But it's also a very unusual film in the franchise that stands out as this kind of oddity amongst the other films, and I would say the most flawed of the movies. Though it is fun to watch a Mission Impossible movie that has Metallica and Limp Bizkit in it. Number 7, Mission Impossible 3. And to be perfectly clear, I'm mixed on Mission Impossible 2, but by no means hate it. Mission Impossible 3, I really like. I'm very positive on this movie, but it's the Mission Impossible franchise where you have multiple movies that are like, wow, that was awesome. So just me being like, yeah, that was very good. I really liked that. You're only number 7 on this particular ranking. This is a movie that makes a lot more sense if you've seen the TV show Alias.
Mission Impossible, the series, inspired in many ways Alias. Mm-hmm. Doing Alias was oddly the thing that ended up landing me this job because you saw that show for sort of a strange.
You did it better. When I saw Alias, what you accomplished with Alias in one show, it's extraordinary.
Well, thank you.
It's great characters, great storytelling, incredible tension. That's what I wanted.
Literally, Tom Cruise watched the first 2 seasons of Alias on DVD and then went, yeah, that's what I want for the next Mission Impossible, and called up JJ and delivered basically Alias the movie, except swapping out Sidney Bristow with Ethan Hunt. The way the movie's structured with let's start with something later in the movie and then get to that later on, that is used all throughout the TV show Alias. Alias is all about this guy in the spy organization with kind of a headquarters that we spend time at, contrasted with the lead character's personal life. This is the only Mission Impossible movie that has Ethan Hunt's personal life. So, very clearly, you can see the Alias influences just poured all over this movie, for better and a little bit for worse, where because somewhat like Mission Impossible 2, where it just feels so far out there, leaning this, seeing Ethan Hunt at dinner parties, it feels out of place because we just never really see that. Like him just at a house, hey, hanging out with the future brother-in-law. It just doesn't feel quite right for the character in light of the franchise as a whole. So there's a little bit of an offness to it, while also being it's kind of nice to see what he's doing when he's not saving the world. But, and I also say this, while I don't think the personal life and him having a wife really fully works in the movie itself, it feels out of place. They found a way to use it really well in later films, in particular Fallout, where they show that as the burden of being Ethan Hunt. That when you know that you're the person that can save the world, are you allowed to be happy? Are you allowed to have a personal life? And the answer is chosen by them is no. And I think that's interesting. In the film, JJ knows how to shoot vibrant, thrilling action. The movie has a sense of urgency and momentum in the back half that just kind of gets you on the edge of your seat in a way that the first 2 movies I don't think did as well. So there's a lot of things in here that I really enjoy. I just some of the pieces with personal life stuff, I don't know that it fully comes together. And our third act finale, when it's just kind of him in a room punching people in the face, feels a little bit anticlimactic compared to the rest of the franchise. But like I said, this is a movie that if this is your number 7 on your ranking, if this is next to last, man, you have got an awesome, consistent franchise, because this is a very good movie. Next up, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And this was a tough one to talk about and get people to properly understand what I was saying, because in my review, I could be pretty negative about the film and point out a bunch of things about it that didn't fully work, while at the same time saying I felt like it was a satisfying conclusion that delivered what I wanted. And what I mean by that is that it's a film that very clearly is swinging for the fences. It wants to knock it out of the park. The scope and size is bigger than ever. It puts you on the edge of your seat. We're dangling Tom Cruise out of an airplane. It absolutely goes for it on every single level. It's this very, premium budget. Let's go for it. Let's close this thing out. Let's bookend it. It's bigger than ever. But I don't think it's a home run. It's like a double. And when you swing for the fences, if you say you point for the fence and instead you just get to second, that feels like disappointment. You have to talk about why it didn't fully deliver, but the fact that it didn't knock it out of the park doesn't make it bad. It just means it's flawed. It didn't live up to its potential. It didn't deliver what it promised, but it did deliver a whole lot. That's what this movie is to me. The other one I compared it to is The Dark Knight Rises. And some people absolutely love that film, and some people absolutely love this film. But to me, The Dark Knight Rises is the most ambitious of Nolan's Dark Knight films. It aims super big with this massive story and all these different plot points. But in order to pull it all together, it had to cut a few corners. There's a few plot threads that I don't think the pieces fully fit. There's a few things where I go, hey, wait a minute. So it can deliver this massive, satisfying conclusion. That's what Final Reckoning was for me. That the first hour has too much exposition. There's too many flashbacks. There's too many callbacks to other things. That we have to set all these pieces up. It's clunky. But man, that submarine sequence is awesome. Man, the plane sequence is awesome. As kind of this send-off that's trying to really kind of pull together things from previous movies. We're making the rabbits, but we're giving answers to that and making the third movie more significant than we realized it was at the first time. We're taking random guy from the Langley vault and we're turning him into this fleshed out, really interesting character that is way more poignant than he has any right to be. It does all these things really well. But in order to do all the things that it does really well, it's pretty choppy and messy to get there. And kind of watching interviews with Christopher McQuarrie, he's kind of talked about how fluid the production of this film was and how they're finding it in the editing room.
And we pivoted and deconstructed the entire movie, and I built a nonlinear version of this film and shot it to be nonlinear. It was very clear as soon as we assembled it, did not work. So Tom said, just make it linear. I made it linear, did not work.
They made last-minute choices on how much exposition to put in it and a bunch to pull back, and they reshot things.
We hate exposition, but we don't avoid it. We shoot it and overshoot it, and over-inform and over-include, and then are constantly pulling it back.
Like it's a movie that was very much in flux, that they were trying to figure it out very late into the process.
You have to be able to pivot with the story. You can't just write it and put it there and do it. That's when you're getting something that is very literal. I read the book on the first act, the second act, and the third act. It's like, you gotta feel your movie.
And I think that's what you feel watching the movie. That ultimately, they delivered the emotional satisfaction that I wanted. Was it kind of messy to deliver that? Yes, it was. Like, I think this is one of, like, maybe the messiest films in the entire franchise. Maybe even messier than Part 2, but ultimately a more satisfying experience than Part 2. Number 5, the original Mission Impossible. And every time I do these rankings, I always want to put this movie higher up on the list because it's so distinct and different. It's such a Brian De Palma film.
Spielberg lived down the street from me, and I would often go and have dinner.
As one does.
Yeah, as one does. And I remember one night I went over, and there was Brian De Palma. You know, Mission was on my mind, and I went home that night, and I stayed up for about 14 hours, and I restudied all of his films.
For De Palma movies, we're talking about Carrie, Blowout.
Untouchables. I just went, oh my gosh, he's got to direct Mission Impossible.
And that's what makes it so interesting to watch in light of where the franchise ends up. Ethan Hunt never fires a gun in this movie. It is very much this spy espionage thriller that, in the context, like, it's difficult to remember this exactly when it came out, but when this movie came out in the mid-90s, we were not all that far removed from the Cold War.
In Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible is a spy movie just a few years after the Cold War ended, and you could feel spy movies were going, well, what the fuck are spy movies even about?
And so the flavor of it, the world where it came out, is so different than the world that we currently live in, and that's so much of what I enjoy about the film because it stands out. Likewise, it's so easy to forget Mission Impossible was a 1960s TV show. I mean, Tom Cruise is just so like turned it into this whole other thing that is, he's the biggest movie star of the last 40 years, and so just dominates the Mission Impossible brand. But 30 years before this movie came out, it was just a TV show in the 1960s. For 30 years, it was a TV show, not associated with Tom Cruise. And the first movie kind of taps into a lot more of that, the espionage, the masks, the spies, the sneaking around side to it, rather than just being this all-out action movie. And with that, you get so many distinct De Palma-isms. The split diopter shots, the unusual angles, just all this stuff that has such a distinct directorial voice that you really don't see in the later movies at all. And I kind of miss that. And so every time I watch this one, like, I want to be able to put it higher up on the list, but at the end of the day, the franchise just got so good as it went along, and they really figured out how to deliver just these insane, thrilling sequences. But, you know, that's also not to say that, like, if you go back, this is still one of the most iconic. And it's not the craziest by any stretch of the imagination. You went wilder and crazier. But it's just a great sequence executed so well that a drop of sweat makes you go, whoo. And that's when you're doing a really good job with your movie. Number 4, Rogue Nation. And once again, to be perfectly clear, the next 4 on this list are kind of interchangeable. That it's like different day of the week, Rogue Nation could be my favorite. It's a little bit of which one did I watch last. That's my favorite because all 4 of these movies have something that they deliver that I'm like, I think maybe that's the best Mission Impossible movie. So when it comes to Rogue Nation, with this film, they started to kind of pull the universe together give it a cohesiveness that it had never really had before. Where this is our 5th director coming in, but it's like the director that stuck with it till the end and the one that kind of wanted to have a little bit more connective tissue between the different things kind of going on. So the government agencies, the syndicate, it all starts to feel like a world that is fully fleshed out and thought out and not just established just for this one movie and this one movie's set of rules. Something as simple as having the Syndicate, which is this evil IMF that came out of MI6, like in British special or British spies or whatever. Like that just makes this feel connected in a really interesting way for me. Adding to that, having Ilsa as this triple agent, every scene she's back and forth is what she's trying to do, who she's doing it for, working all the different sides for all the different people, especially for herself. It just, once again, has this spy side to it that sometimes can be missing from the franchise of just double agents, things like that. That's classic to the spy genre, but not quite as common in the Mission Impossible franchise. And this is the movie that finally gave us that. It has big action. It does start off with Tom on the outside of a plane where you're normally on the inside of a plane. But then we get into all the espionage stuff and the different sides and even the political side to it with everything kind of going on with Jeremy Renner. And that's something that it's like they kept finding what was missing from the franchise. What can like make the franchise as a whole better? Not just make a great movie, but elevate the franchise as a whole. And that's what I think this movie did really, really well, in particular with the Syndicate and its implications for spy agencies around the world. And to that, it just feels like a wittier film. It has more classic Mission Impossible stuff with the masks, the trickery, the let's outsmart the enemy, let's not just out action sequence and stunt work the enemies. And if I were to come up with a reason why it's number 4, I don't really have one that I would stand by. But there's like this general sense of, in terms of the final, this great run of films, it's the one that to me that gets a little bit lost in my mind, where Ghost Protocol, Dubai Tower, Fallout, just so good. Dead Reckoning, it's structured really well in my mind. And this is the one that kind of gets lost in the midst of these other movies, while still being one of the best spy films of all time. Real quick before I share my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the Mission Impossible films. Also, I have done reviews of all of the movies. I did a whole review series back when Fallout came out, and then, of course, I've reviewed the ones that have come out during the history of my channel. We'll have a playlist or a pinned comment or something like that. Also, if you're in the Texas or on planet Earth, be sure to come out to Fan Expo Dallas this weekend, May 30th, May 31st. I will be there. I've got 2 panels on the 30th, Friday night. I would love to meet you there. Love to have you attend. I'm going to be recording the videos to put them on my channels. It should be a great, amazing time. In third, Dead Reckoning Part 1. And for me, this movie kind of combined some of the best elements of the previous 2 McQuarrie films with the fun of Ghost Protocol. That it has kind of the cohesive world with these interconnected parts. It starts even more so calling back to original films and making for this very cohesive franchise with a lot of connective tissue, but bringing in that levity, the humor that was in Ghost Protocol. Other thing I really like about this movie is that while it is a very long film, it's also very efficient and tight. Like, it's one of the most distinctly structured blockbusters that I've ever seen. That once you get past the opening of the film, and the opening credits are 27 minutes into the film, then you go to an airport, you go to Rome, you have a nightclub sequence, and then you're on the train. It's like such distinct sequences, and it, for being a long film that's not in a lot of places, it moves at a really nice, brisk pace where we're just like, have this like one interconnected scene to tell you where we're going and why. And then we're just in the middle of the adventure in Rome. And very quickly we go from arrest to car chase to on the run to like, where do we go next? We're meeting up with this person here at the nightclub. At the nightclub, this thing goes down, fight breaks out, chase down the road. Where do we need to go next? It just has this pace to it that I thoroughly enjoyed. Even rewatching it, I was like, man, this movie just had like the as long as it is, it just has this way that it just moves very briskly through what's kind of going on. And Tom Cruise just knows how to deliver what his audiences want, and is willing to do the hard work to figure out, how can I do something people have never seen before? How can I put my life on the line? How can I do the craziest thing? And in each of these little set pieces, whether a car chase, a bomb at an airport, a train sequence, deliver something thrilling and wildly entertaining. Now, I used to have this one. I had this one at number 1 back when it came out a couple years ago. There's a couple things that pulled it back just a little bit. Some of that is that I don't think that Final Reckoning fully landed the ship as the part 2, and so there's a few dangling plot threads. There's some stuff about Gabriel, Marie, the entity that weren't satisfying enough when the answers were finally given, so it hurt this one a little bit. And there's a little bit of a MacGuffin problem where the whole movie's built on the intrigue of trying to find this key and figure out what it's for. But with the way they decided to finally structure the film, starting off with the submarine, the audience is always ahead of the characters. We have answers to questions that they don't have answers to. And so it just kind of cheapens a little bit of the answers that are given later on, because they're like, what is it for? What does it go to? What do we do with this? And we're all like, there's a submarine and there's a key, and I'm pretty sure there's something to do with the entity, something really important related to it. So I already know. There's just like an odd choice. And apparently that was very, very late into the process that they decided to add the submarine to the beginning of this movie. The submarine was originally not in this film. It was only in the next one. And that's just kind of like the fluid nature how they make these movies. They're just shuffling things around, trying to decide when to reveal what. And I kind of respect that, but also sometimes you go, I don't know that all of your choices were quite right. Our runner-up, Ghost Protocol. And with this film, Tom Cruise brought in the director of The Incredibles.
After The Incredibles, Tom Cruise had seen it and invited me to come over to his place to talk about films, and told me how much he liked the films, but also that he liked the staging in the films.
Which kind of laid the foundation that led to him taking over and directing this film. And Brad Bird kind of talked about it like it was still in that era where they wanted directors to come in and bring what they love about spy movies to the franchise.
I like that they were celebrating filmmakers and empowering them. And they said to me early on when I got on it, they said, if there's anything you would want to see in a spy movie, we should just do it. Fantastic. And I had 6 things that I wanted to see in a spy movie, and I got to do 5 of them. The 6th one, I didn't quite get it to fit in with the story we have. I'll do it in something else.
And he had whatever you want to make in a spy movie, that's what we want you to put in this film. And why does this movie have more gadgets that are a lot of fun? Because that's what Brad Bird wanted in a spy movie. And for me, this to me is the most fun of the Mission Impossible films. And it just has a certain levity to it, a certain way in which, during the first half of the movie, they're always stacking conflict on top of conflict and then adding a joke in the middle of it, just the right amount of a joke. Little gags in the middle of a sequence that's really intense or whatever. And that to me is what makes this film. You have this death-defying, insane stunt where he's climbing this insane tower. It's shot beautifully. The Dubai Tower sequence is the best sequence I have ever seen in a theater because I saw it in true IMAX, and when that camera goes out of the window, I'm grabbing my seat wow, this is a movie made to be overused so often. This is a movie made to be seen on the biggest screen possible. But in the middle of this sequence that's already just visually very stunning, they add all of these little bits in that add conflict while adding a joke. And at just the right moment, having a line, having a glove fail, having a glove reappear, it's just so wonderfully crafted. Every time I watch the first hour of this movie, I want to put this one at number 1, but the back half of the movie, while still being great, is also... it feels very underwhelming compared to how good the first hour was. And when you compare the third act of this movie to the tower sequence or the jailbreak or whatever, it's just not quite as exciting. Or the Kremlin sneaking around, it's not quite as good. But I love that this one has the spy stuff. It has sneaking around. It has the stunts. It has the humor. It has all of the stuff that I love about Mission Impossible movies in this one film. But coming in at number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout. Probably the most well-rounded of our Mission Impossible films that has all of the great things of the previous few films while just kind of adding in a little bit of extra emotion to it. That 6 films in, we really feel like we're starting to get to know Ethan Hunt. And they're starting to crack the code of what's going on underneath. Not just let's show him in his personal life, not just he'll go to great lengths to save people, but what is that inside of him that's driving him to live like that? And the costs of that? And how would that be perceived by the people around? How is that a vulnerability while being his greatest strength? And it just adds all those extra layers to the character and the franchise and makes you care a little bit more. It's not just thrilling. It has an emotion to it.
The big thing for me in Fallout was the discovery of just how important emotion was. Yeah. In narratives like this. With Fallout, emotion was baked into every frame. I did not call action on a shot until it was somehow framed emotionally.
Adding to that, you bring in Henry Cavill, and you kind of get 2 different great villains in this one with our Syndicate kind of returning and now the Apostles and Cavill coming in. And so 2 different, very different villains that have their own unique presence and threat to Hunt working together against him. We continue to get nonstop thrilling action in it. And it's whether you're talking about one of the best fights in the franchise is the bathroom fight in this movie, but you also have a great foot chase that can be really funny in the back half of this film. The casual death-defying stunts that are just kind of in this movie of Tom Cruise jumping between buildings, and we watch him break his foot and then he keeps running. It's not the craziest thing in the movie, but there's this casual commitment to going the extra mile that you feel in every frame in the film. And you get him dangling from helicopters and jumping, doing halo jumps too inside of the film. And so it has the tense, an urgency and tension, momentum. And Christopher McQuarrie has said with this movie, this is the film where you realize the importance of every frame, thinking like, what is the emotion for this shot and this sequence? Why does it matter on an emotional level? And you get that in this film. And so once you put it all together, and I think this is the one that is the most well-rounded, without me being like, yeah, it was great, but the back half isn't quite as strong, or maybe they could have done no disclaimers, just man, what a Mission Impossible movie. So it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to join me down below in the comment section, share your ranking, and check out my full reviews somewhere around here. And if you're on planet Earth, be sure to be at Fan Expo Dallas this weekend, especially Friday when I've got 2 different panels. I'd love to see you there, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.